right. Good morning, people. Thank you for all coming and waking up so early on this amazing Tuesday morning. Today, I'm going to talk about how we can all increase LTV in your games through segmenting your users. We can go through different ways of how different developers approach segmentation. There are a couple of ways to do that, but in the end, we'll focus on the one that I think is the most useful and informative, and yet brings the most results when it comes to monetizing your game. I'm sure it's not a secret for all of you that there are different kinds of players. Some people prefer competitive play, some people like exploring the gameplay storyline, some are more inclined to do PvP gameplay, some are enjoying PvE gameplay. That's why I believe that segmentation is used widely for a reason in games development. And it's mostly used to make sure that you're making the most revenue from every user that you're able to retain and attract to your game. Now, when it comes to segmenting users, it all goes around the data that you can obtain and gather. And that's the most tricky part of this whole process. There's a lot of data in your game. Like some of this data, you might not even be sure what it is there for. So when you soft launch or test a game, you're focusing on specific data sets that you believe you will use in the end. But as a general rule, you miss a large part of data that you will need at a later stage of your game's development, which is why I highly recommend developers to gather as much data as possible, because you never know what numbers you may use or need in the future. And since we don't have a time machine, you can't go back and gather this data from the past and then start using it. However, gathering data and analyzing it comes at a cost. So depending on the telemetry of hooks and data that you want to obtain, this will lead to either higher or lower costs of development. So it's up to developer or up to you to decide what kind of data you want to collect. It's also important to pay attention to the granularity of data. So if you're looking at monthly, daily, hourly, minutely, secondly, we're going to go further. But if we take an example of a game where you have, let's say there's a PvP game with multiplayer modes, and there's a specific mode that lasts for, let's say, 30 minutes a day. You want to make sure that you're gathering data, for example, with a minute granularity, so you have a broader picture of how people are engaging with this limited edition content or gameplay features that you have, that you're offering every day. The kind of KPIs or kind of data you can look at may be average time session, or how many times a user has clicked on the storefront page, or how many times have they engaged with an ad or haven't finished an ad, or try to commit to purchase but then said no, cancel. This is all very important metrics that will help you analyze how engaged your users are. But more than that, segmentation of users allows you to personalize game experience. Now, it's very important for you to remember that players, there's so many cohorts of them. You can even say that, for example, this specific group of users that are competitive, they're playing the same mode, they still have different approaches and interests and things that are attracting them to the game. So it's important for you to make sure that experience is specific to the player and that you're giving them affordable and attainable goals so that they can feel that they're progressing in the game. Like game difficulty, tutorial difficulty, its length, it's all very important. Now, it's also important to make sure that the content is relevant to the user base. For example, I'm playing some kind of a battle, you know, those popular idle games that are, you build a team of 5 characters and there are different modes. I like PvP gameplay. There's a lot of them provide like extensive PvE gameplay, but that's not what interests me. So if the developer is analyzing my behavior in the game, they can identify that, oh, we should probably direct this user into PvP. We should offer him some bundles that are useful in PvP and make sure that he's engaged and continues to play and return to the game every day. And finally, users must feel the value of playing your game. Like, time is as important as money. So whenever I turn on my phone and open an app, I want to make sure that it's probably the most efficient way of spending my time. So make sure that your players feel the value of playing your game. One of the most basic segmentation methods would be using two axes, X and Y, where on the Y-axis we're looking at how willing users are to spend in your game, and on the X-axis we can see how casual or hardcore they are. And this gives us 4 different groups or segments that we're going to look into now. And by the way, casuality and hardcore, this axis doesn't mean that players, like hardcore players, don't necessarily spend the most in your game. They can be engaged, they can play and min-max everything you can offer, but at the same time, they may not be a spender. That's why let's start looking at the third group, casual budgeters, which is most likely the segment of users that most of your players start in. These users, they're most likely brought into the game through an ad or some friends referred them. Since they're not really professional gamers, it might be their first game ever actually, they may not understand how to play the game. So they may not know that to make sure that you take the most of the game, you have to log in every day. Like a lot of games are using those retaining methods where you offer in-game bonuses for logging every day. So these users might not use this feature completely. And unfortunately, if you don't find a way to drag these users from this group to one of the other 3, they just might end up churn out and you lose the user. Now let's look at another group. It's casual spenders. So these users or players most likely have a job. So they have money to invest in your game. They also have free time, but it's limited, which is why those users consider time as money. So they want to make sure that whenever they play the game, they get maximum satisfaction from playing it for a certain period of time. They're likely busy, as I said, employed, they have a job, so they may spend a little bit to make sure that they progress faster. And how many of you actually are developing mobile games? Could you please raise a hand? Oh, I love you. So you definitely know that mobile games don't sell as much DLCs or content. They sell a way to progress faster in the game. So like all these timers, all the lives that you get to attempt a level again, these are all just ways to help you faster in the game, progress faster in the game. And yes, so this group is usually the largest user base. Sorry, no, it's the second largest user base. But now let's look at the 4th group, competitive budgeters. So this was me when I was 16. I didn't have any money. I had a lot of time though, so I could play the game as many hours as I wanted during the day. And I was competitive, and I'm pretty sure a lot of these players are competitive. They want to make sure that they're the best, yet they don't have the money to use those pay-to-win mechanics. So as students or kids, they have this drive to prove they're the best. So they will use all the features that you offer in the game that allow you to progress faster or to become stronger in the game. For example, all the free-to-play features that are giving you any kind of bonuses or experience points, gold, resources, currencies, most likely they will use all of it before they go to sleep. So yes, their goal is to min-max all free-to-play features to get as much value as possible. And now, the most expensive and the most important segment of your users, the competitive spenders, which is over here. Uh, they have a lot of money probably. They are ready to spend it, and they know that they can do it and afford it, so they will try to be the best. So identifying those whales is very important, and it's also important to keep them engaged and retain them, not lose them at any cost. Any new content you release, update, new heroes, new levels, these players will most likely buy, if it's a paid content, they will buy it to make sure that they progress as soon as possible so that they're in front of the others. They will use daily allowances, but not necessarily do that all the time, but they will try to do it since, again, it helps them become the best in the game. So, as this is your most important and most valuable user group, try to identify them, try to find the engagement KPIs that help you identify them. And now talking about a case study. Are you familiar with the game Tanks a Lot? Developed by Highcore Labs, published by Boombit. All right. It's a game where your task is to customize your tank. It's a top-down view, PvP, also offers PvE features. From winning the matches, you get cards, you upgrade your tank, and then you compete with levels. So basically, that's the core loop of the game, consists of 3 parts. As I said, you upgrade your tank to progress in different leagues. Here you can look at how strong, so players will focus on the strength of their tank to make sure that they can compete at higher levels in the league. And they definitely need the resources to make sure that they can afford upgrading the tank. So that's the progression part of the core loop. Now, the challenge part is the PvP. So players are, they can play as many matches as they want during the day. There's no cost, there's no tickets for that. Yet, there's a tournament league. And to play in the tournament league, you have to use tickets that are provided every day on a free basis, and you can also buy them. So once you use up all your tickets, you played matches until you kind of got tired of that. You accumulate all the rewards, all the resources, and then you invest in your tank again. So the core loop, it repeats and repeats. Now the most interesting part here is the engagement KPIs. So as a game developer, it's important to identify those KPIs that you can look into. For example, if we look at the progression part of the core loop, you might want to know how much time a user spends in tank customization page, how many cards they have unlocked, how many tanks they have in their garage, and in general, how many different variations of tank configurations have they tried. So this helps you identify if this user is experimenting with setups or he just follows a guide that they found online that says, oh, this is the best setup, just play with it. So this is also important to segment those users into experimenter or just believer into a standard proven model. Now the challenge part, the PvP part, is where where players spend most of the time of their game. And metrics you can look at are the amount of battles they've played, the KDA, the win ratio, how many deaths or kills they have in a match, which is the KDA ratio, how many gems or any other hard currency they've spent to obtain those tickets to play more in the tournament league. So you can see if this player is a competitive one or just plays as a casual player. And the final one is the rewards. You can look at the trophies a player gets in one day. And that's very important, by the way, because you can see how fast they progress in your game and how fast they're going to reach the level gate or the payment gate. And you can calculate users' life cycle value, not LTV, but LCV, which is also important because there are different cycles in the game. And that can help you come up with a strategy for this specific segment of users. You can also look at the numbers of chests they open to get new cards and how many play of the day they got. So whenever you play a match, you can get this MVP status. So you can see if this player is very good at what he does, and if he falls into that group, that makes him a very valuable player for you because that means he's a hardcore player. Let's look at a specific profile now, Progressor Pete. So Pete loves progressing through the game. He's not as much competitive, he just likes to get to the end point of the game. So he won't be focusing too much on how strong his tank setup is. Rather, he will just find the one that he has in his collection, because there are lots of cards, like hundreds of them, but you may not have all of them if you don't spend too much or if you don't play too much. And he doesn't spend too much time customizing the tank. And also, since his end goal is to achieve the end point of the game, he will find a game mode that offers him the highest utility. So less time spent, higher progress achieved. So how can we monetize these kind of players? Pete. So as I said, Pete doesn't own all the cards. He has a handful of them. So it would be a great idea to offer Pete the same cards that he already has. Let me go back for a second. So in this game, you can have multiple cards of the same kind, and you use them to upgrade this card level so they become stronger. For example, if it's a turret or, I don't know, a tank base, the more cards you have of the same kind, the stronger this part is. So it's a good idea to make sure that the offers that you surface to this player, to Pete specifically, contain those specific cards. Now, since Pete wants to progress as fast as possible, he needs resources, he needs tickets so he can play the tournament levels, progress in the league. Providing him with those resources is also a good idea, and you can actually make a bundle, for example, offer him some cards and also add some tournament tickets and sell this as a specific personalized offer that he will most likely buy. And finally, since Pete is not as competitive, sometimes he can experience pain points when competing in leagues. Although it's very crucial for him to play that mode, he may not be as competitive due to having insufficient cards. So whenever a player reaches that point, you want to make sure that he doesn't get disappointed or disencouraged to continue playing. Make sure you offer him some resources so he can continue doing that. That would be if there's a booster or a new card, like you see that he cannot compete with other players due to lack of specific parts of a tank, offer him something that is going to help him progress faster. If there's, for example, a setup that a lot of players are using, that's so-called OP setup, give him one of those cards so he can feel that, oh yes, I finally got that, I can progress further. And with ads, placements, ad placements in the game, they matter a lot. So if people think that, oh, ad monetization is just waterfalls and making sure you got the best deals with the network, no. It's very important to make sure that ad placements are very organic in the game. They're integrated natively and in a smart way. So in this case, Pete doesn't want to lose trophy counts, and trophy counts is the resource you get for winning or losing a match. For example, if Pete lost a match, you may show him an ad placement that would say, oh, you can watch an ad and you lose twice less trophies. It's not going to damage your monetization model, but it's definitely going to help Pete to feel that, oh yes, I haven't lost a lot, I'm going to try further. So yes, that's one of the approaches. Now, number 2, we have Minimaxer Matt. Matt is this competitive guy that likes playing and competing with other players. He uses all the free-to-play features that we've looked at before, and he spends a lot of time trying to come up with this super tank setup that nobody knows of, that he has used Excel sheets to calculate the damage and all the outputs and all that, and now he found this ideal tank setup. So he sticks to it. He tries to play with it, but at the same time, he loves experimenting. Now, it's for Matt, KD ratio is important. Like being on top of the scoreboard is very important. He's a competitive guy. Make sure that the cards that you are offering him, the bundles that you're offering him, help him achieve his goal, which is being the best in the match. Um, Also, when you develop a game, well, you always have some new content or new levels in plan. Whenever you release that, make sure that once Matt enters the game, he has this offer to buy the new content in the very first second, because those kind of players, they love getting the new cards to show that, oh yes, I got them, I'm gonna win everyone in the match. And in terms of ads, well, since it's his goal, again, to be the best, you need to make sure that progress part of getting from beginner to the best in the match is as short as possible. So in this game specifically, there are chests that give you cards, like a gacha system. And if you make a placement that allows him to speed up the opening process of this chest, it's going to be very useful for that segment of users. And we have collector Carly. Carly loves collecting stickers. She also likes collecting tanks. Wow. And she enjoys she enjoys multiple collections in her game. Like, she wants to make sure that the book of all the cards that are available in the game are in her collection. So, as I said, her main objective is to obtain every card there is in the game. And, well, which may sound odd, why would you do that in this game? It's not a collector game, it's a PvP game, but there are players like that. So you need to respect every player's interests and preferences, which is why I was talking about the personalization of experience. So Carly still participates in all the modes. She may not have all the best results, but she still likes the drive of the game. She likes getting the rewards and making sure, oh, after the match, when I get the chest, when I open it, I really hope I get the new card that I still don't have in my collection. So, looking at this information, this specific player profile, here are the monetization opportunities that you can use. So, since Carly is a collector, providing her additional chances to obtain or receive new cards are ideal. So, if you know that there's, again, new content release with new cards, offering or surfacing a bundle with new content would be ideal. Now, if we look at ads, there are, again, a couple of ways you can be creative with the ad placement implementation. Since it's important to have all the cards in Carly's collection, you may again offer her speeding up the chest opening process or double the rewards after the game or after she opens the chest. You can also provide some random bonuses. For example, some games, they have this feature where on the main menu you have like a randomly appearing extra placement. That would be, oh, special chest for you. To open this chest, watch an ad. Like, some developers are using it, and not every user gets this placement. So Carly would be an ideal candidate for this kind of a placement, where you just offer her extra cards, just so she can play longer in the game. So we have looked at a PvP game that involves multiplayer. Now let's look at a single-player game, which is Gardenscapes. So Gardenscapes, an ideal candidate for a match 3 game with, again, different kinds of users. I hope everyone's familiar with the game, right? Let's look at the core loop. Again, progression, challenge, economy. So you build your garden with resources. In this specific case, resources are the stars that you get by completing levels. There are like certain quests, you get the stars, you complete the quest, your garden changes. You can also use coins in some modes to change the appearance or add some extra elements to the garden, which you get through beating levels. Now the challenge part, beating match 3 levels. This is where players will most likely spend most of their time, especially in those difficult levels where they play continuously, just try to overcome this paygate level. And finally, the rewards. Yes, you use the rewards to reinvest in your garden to see the results of your hardcore gameplay in a beautiful garden. KPIs. Again, in terms of garden, we can look at the time spent on the gardens part of the game, like just scrolling around, seeing, oh, beautiful tree, beautiful birds. You can see how many garden objects are unlocked. Like either it's a percentage or this X out of Y. You can look at the inventory slots that are unlocked or purchased, since they can be not free. And all the other KPIs you see on the board. In terms of challenges, the amount of levels a user plays within a day, what's their win ratio. You have to look at if they're using resources for boosters, like to make the level completion easier, or they're just focusing on spending their hard currency into extra lives, so they can play the same level without any boosters, but they want to prove that, oh yes, I can beat this level without any extra bonuses, and they just keep buying lives more and more and more. So these KPIs are important. They again help you segment users into different purchasing and spending behavior. And economy, where they spend their in-game resources. Is it gardens, again, is it how many decorations they've bought per day, how many power-ups, and so on. So one of the profiles we can look at is Explorer Eric. Eric loves his garden. Actually, he has a big garden down in Sacramento. And he might not even enjoy match 3 levels, but he loves decorating his garden. It's like his hobby. When it's raining outside, he goes into his phone and just plays with his garden. Now, he loves exploring different configurations in the game. For example, today, he has this loadout of a garden, and if the game offers him this opportunity, he can switch the loadout into something else. That's especially important when your friends can enter your garden and look at it, because you can show off what you've achieved, how you've decorated, how beautiful it is. For many people, that is important. Monetization opportunities for Eric. So, for example, Eric owns a piece of furniture, let's say a garden bench, from one specific collection. Now, you can make a customized offer in IAPs that would offer some currency that would help him progress, and give him another item from the same set, so that his furniture set is complete. That's very important for people that have preferences to have everything in order and everything from the same collection. Now, Eric might not be the best player of match 3, so he might need some help beating the levels. And offering him bundles of power-ups can be very useful, as this will help him play further, again, get new pieces of furniture, decorate his garden. And in terms of ads, you can be very creative here. Since Eric spends most of his time in the gardens section of the game, you can make a special placement. For example, randomly, at some points of time during the day, some bees appear in the garden. And if you click on these bees, they're like, oh, watch an ad, and these bees will spread pollen around your garden, and they will be like, the plants will be more beautiful. So for 30 minutes. Sounds weird, but this can work. Next one, Challenger Lisa. So Lisa is very good at match 3 games. She has played most of them, like all of the top 100 App Store or Google Play match 3 games. She's played all of them. And since she likes beating the level and proving that she's so good at this game, she doesn't want to buy any power-ups, because that doesn't go along with her philosophy of being the best without any boosters. So instead of spending money on boosters, she's more likely to spend money on extra lives, so she can keep attempting completing the same level. Now, the monetization opportunities, as we said, Lisa likes the challenge. So if you can offer her some extra limited levels, like special edition levels that are more difficult, that would give her an amazing results, yet she has to pay to play those levels, that's a good idea. Second of all, um, make sure that offers, again, don't offer any, offers don't contain any boosters that make level completion easier. Lisa likes the challenge. Give her more opportunity to try and beat the level again and again and again. And when it comes to ads, well, since Lisa likes beating levels and she gets the most satisfaction when she's proven that point, uh, putting an ad placement after a successful level attempt would be a great idea, and that's because of psychology. Her emotions are high, she's really happy, and whatever you offer in that moment of time, she'll most likely just put, yes, yes, I agree. So this is how it works. Now, we're coming closer to the end of this presentation. As I said, make sure you collect data as soon as possible, but remember that this may have extra development costs, and analyzing all those numbers may be difficult, but it's very important. Use segmentation. There are different models. So the one we looked at is engagement segmentation. You can also look at segmentation based on monetization signals. For example, how often users make a purchase. There's a model called RFM, which goes for recency, frequency, and monetary, where you can look at how often players make a purchase, what's the value of their average purchase, and how long ago was their last purchase. There's also purchasing history segmentation. For example, you give a user an offer, then either they redeemed it or they didn't. They go into another segment where you, for example, attempt to offer them a cheaper one if they haven't bought it. If they bought it, they go back to the cycle. So you try to teach them spend more or more frequently. There are many ways to do that. You can find a lot of resources online on how to do it, but make sure you use segmentation as it's crucial. Ads and IAP monetization, there should be a balance. So there are developers that believe, oh, I don't need ads, or I don't need IAPs. Well, some genres do prove that you don't need any IAPs, but still, it's always to have a balance, because there may be players that want to spend, and there may be players that don't want to spend, yet they're happy to get extra rewards through ads, which still generate you revenue. And A/B testing. Always A/B test different models, different strategies, different creatives. That's very important. A/B testing is one of your best friends in game development. And yeah, of course, apply behavioral economics. It's a very interesting and important piece of science, I would say. So remember about this. Thank you. That's all from me. My name is Ilya, by the way, and I'm working as a client partner in Unity Ads, helping our dear partners make sure they monetize their games in the most efficient way. Thank you.
Okay. So if you're making a game that is not a mobile game, not based on selling stuff in the game, can you still apply this to increase the lifetime value of your customers, or a lifetime?
Is it a premium game or free-to-play game?
Premium.
Okay. So for you, since are there any extra purchases in the game, or once the user bought the game, there's no way you can?
Only DLCs maybe.
Okay. Yes, you definitely have to use segmentation, because, for example, you can have different contents that you offer to the user, and using the same engagement KPI method, you can identify which kind of content or DLC this user is more likely to buy. So it doesn't go into ads, because you're probably not using any ads in the premium game, or selling IAPs that speed up the progress. But even with DLCs, it's very important to offer the ones that users are more likely to buy. So you definitely should still segment users, even in a premium game.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, I have another question. Regarding the personas you created, the segmentation, you are based solely on data, on these KPIs you presented, or you are also doing interviews with potential players, or, I mean, because it seems that you infer a lot of information just from the KPIs. Is this the case?
Well, feedback is very important from users, that's for sure. But this specific case was based on engagement KPIs. So I'm not a developer myself of these games, but this is an example how you can approach engagement KPI, segmentation based on engagement KPIs. So your question, if feedback or interviews with users are important, or if we have used it in this specific case?
Yeah. Where did you get the information you presented? No.
Oh no, this is all purely on engagement KPIs.
Okay.
As you can see how much time they've spent in each window in the game, how many times they have attempted. You can use data to create the profiles, and that's how a lot of developers are doing it nowadays.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I can have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's some people that advocate like segmenting to like the single user even, like as much as you can segment is.
A cohort of one.
Exactly, a cohort of one, like classic trying to sell you the pitch of segmentation, right? But at what point of getting narrower and narrower do you start seeing like diminishing returns on implementation cost? Do you have any experience on that?
I necessarily don't. But again, this is this question that falls into like personalize the game to a cohort of one, right?
Yeah.
It does involve costs, but there are companies that offer products that can solve this problem for you. And I'm pretty sure you can find some representative of these companies here at Unite.
I'm sure they'll find me too.
We can actually have a talk about this after the session.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. That's it?
No.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to ads, you also segment, and if yes, how do you deal with the community when they find differences? Like, I don't have the ads, they have it, so how do you deal with that?
So, yes, that's a good one. You want to make sure that you offer the same fairness of play to users. Here's the main question is, how many ads per day do you allow each user to see? So you want to make sure that although they have different placements with different rewards, the amount of ads they can see per day is around the same. So you don't want to see like one segment of users that can see 3 ads per day and get some rewards, another one that can see 10 ads per day and get like 3 times higher rewards. So the placements can be in the game. All of them can be in the game, but they can be triggered by some activity. It is a difficult model, but for example, I know some games that have all these placements available, but there's a limited amount of time you can watch ads per day. So over time, users will understand that, oh, this placement is not as valuable for me as this one, so they will use their quota to watch an ad on the placement that gives them the highest reward, or the reward that they're more likely to be satisfied with. So I understand your question. It's a good idea to A/B test, by the way, to see if it's good to show placements to all users, all of the placements, or to use them selectively. And I know some developers that are testing that. For example, not showing ads to new players, while keep showing ads to players that have signed up like a year ago. So it all comes back to A/B testing. And if you see like there are higher churns or higher engagement with one of the models, that's what you have to focus on, while explaining your community why you did that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I guess that's it. Right, thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing Unite.